Welcome back, my friends. September 6th, 2019, 10:08 p.m. And we are finally watching that central rotation of Dorian finally pulling off into the Atlantic Ocean. Not after putting a lot of people in danger, especially by the Outer Banks and the Carolinas, just missing some significant parts of Virginia, that is. And now you can see it, the rain bands moving through Chesapeake Bay, up through New Jersey, Long Island. We got Connecticut in there. They had some heavy winds today due to these upflows, this pressure. Like we said, the second that pressure pulled to the west as far as the Bermuda Atlantic, we would see this thing launch out into the ocean, or at least up and out to the northeast. And it's actually being pushed by a second system now, so we should be seeing some even faster movement as this thing rolls up the east coast. So with that said, yes, we've been talking about Dorian a lot, and something popped up a few days ago when we were talking about future hurricanes, and then the next day it disappeared. So I took a little flack for that, but guess what, guys? We're right back to where we started. We have a hurricane that is very possible to develop and be almost a mimic of Dorian, if not worse. Now, before I go there, I just want to show you, we do have, I believe, let's just make sure I get this right before I just say it wrong. We're going to go into here. I know the hurricane's there. Juliet. Juliet is now a tropical storm. Once it passes that 20-degree threshold, usually when they go up north this way, they tend to dissipate. You would need a lot of momentum from these hurricanes in order to make it up through the Baja region of California and then into Southern California, if landing as a hurricane at all. Usually it's the remnants of a tropical storm, things of that nature. But we do need to watch out for Hawaii, at least for the next month. Because we are still seeing a pretty big output as far as the Pacific Ocean putting out hurricanes. Now, on with the Atlantic Ocean. Now, this chart is going to be a little different than the chart you're going to see next. So as you can see, we have Dorian up here in the northeast. Finally, we can actually take a breath. We can assess what happened with Dorian, especially in the Outer Banks. That's my main concern right now. I would love to hear from any of you in the Outer Banks that went through Dorian itself. We have Tropical Storm Gabriel out there, which is basically, in my opinion, going to be a letter waste, only because it's been out in the ocean. I don't see it making it down far enough, to the warm water belt, as we like to call, close to the equator, and then make its way across to the United States again. We do have disturbance number 2 now at a 0% chance of cyclone formation, but this is where things get interesting. We do have a chance for a cyclone formation, which is named disturbance 1, but it's at 10% chance of cyclone formation over the next 48 hours. Now, that's key because when you look at the 5-day part of it, where my mouse is just above my mouse there, you see the 5-day high? It's at 70%. And that's why I wanted to make this video and show you guys what we're talking about. So you can see we have Tropical Storm Gabriel, even on the earthquake charts. Gabriel's there, Dorian's there, Juliet's there, and we are sure to see Eduardo very soon, or what was the name? Let's see what the name is, actually. Let's get this right. Humberto, I'm sorry. Humberto is next. That would be the named storm that we see next, depending on which one forms first. That's how they go. They do not go in order as far as left to right or right to left, as far as the way we read. It goes by which storm becomes a tropical storm first and gets its name first. So you may see hurricanes with names behind systems that aren't named yet. So it can get a little bit confusing. But Humberto is the next name on the list, and it looks like it could possibly be something pretty significant. Now, before we go any further, here's tropical tidbits. As of right now, we are at 965 pressure. In fact, I think I have the actual details pulled up for Dorian at this moment. We're at 80 knot gusts or sustained winds, and then 100 mile an hour or knots gusts. That would be a little bit higher, probably in the 110 range, 115 range as far as wind gusts go, but mostly centralized in the center area. Sorry about that. That was my phone. Centralized in the middle of this storm, which is now pretty far off the coast, and hopefully it stays that way. It is going to bring a lot of rain to Long Island and the parts of the Northeast that do stick out, so that will be an issue. And as we scroll down here, you can see we have Gabriel being marked as a tropical storm. And this is that first invest you see here, which could become a hurricane, but it looks like it's going to swing right out into the ocean. But the main thing I want to talk about right now is what we may see in our very, very near future. I know this says September 22nd, but here it is again. This is the same exact storm we looked at 2 days ago. Then the next day it disappeared, and now it's back. And check out that number, 942. Easily capable of sustaining a Category 4 hurricane. We'll back up all the way to Gabriel, or not Gabriel, Dorian rather. And then we have our invest here in the middle of the ocean. This was labeled 8 at first. And if you guys noticed, I made a post that said 8 would not be the issue. It's what's under 8 that would be the issue. And as of right now, that seems to be what is going to happen. Let me zoom out here a little bit so we could see the screen together. There we go. And just check this out. Check out what forms down here, and then check out where it goes. And you're just going to be like, am I watching a repeat of what we just went through over the last week and a half? So as we move into September 9th, September 10th, and again, I'm going to say this again. I know we are far out and a lot can change between now and then, but it does not mean I'm not going to show you what the potential is for this storm. And it is very high potential, believe it or not, because even their National Hurricane Center is talking about this storm this many days out. So keep an eye down by the west coast of Africa here, just off the, oh my goodness, I'm even losing track of the islands, man. My brain's been all over the place the last couple days, but we're going to move forward anyway. But keep your eyes right here and watch how this storm blows up. Just as we get towards the Leeward Islands, right there, we're at 999, just before the Leeward Islands. Looks like it wants to go right over Puerto Rico. Again, those of you that live in Puerto Rico, do not take this as fact yet. This is simply data we have updated on our chart right now on Tropical Tidbits that's showing us the possibility of a hurricane. But what's scaring me here is after it gets out of the area where it's usually growing the fastest, watch this. We move forward in time, and then boom, this thing sits still once again, just like Dorian did, not in the same spot, but sits in the same spot for an entire day and then just drops to 945 pressure. I mean, check this out. When we get to this spot, we're at 973 as far as barometric pressure, and then this thing sits here for almost a day and a half and drops to 945. Guys, that could push a Category 4 hurricane. And then after that, again, hurricanes are moved by pressure around them. They're not moved on their own. Naturally, they want to shoot north based on the spin of the Earth and based on the fact that we are in the northern hemisphere of the U.S. But watch this. As we move forward and forward and forward, that's our last frame right there, 942, putting it right in that pocket of the southeast once again. Our last set of data, which I could show you, hopefully it shows the same thing, actually had this thing going straight up to New York. So, of course, I got comments talking about me saying that Irma possibly could go to New York, and the keyword was possibly, but people don't listen to that sometimes. They just like to look and comment. But with that said, check this out. I'll back this up, let this load a little bit. In the meantime, check out the numbers on Tropical Storm Juliet, 55 knots. And they're not registering the gusts as of right now. So with that said, that would be something we would have to check out in the coming days. As you can see, there's Dorian leaving once again. Here is invest number 8 that was marked a few days ago. And then this is where we want to watch down here. Hopefully this one will bring it up to where we saw it either yesterday or at least about 8 hours ago. And it's not showing it. Okay, so we got to go back to our original shot. And this is what we can expect possibly in the next 14 days, 15 days, give or take. And if this does happen, check that out. We even get down to 944. That will be a very significant storm. And I don't care if we're 10 days out. I don't care if we're 20 days out. We need to be aware of these storms because it doesn't matter. We were a day out of Dorian possibly making landfall, and there were still people making plans to get out or to leave. I mean, for the most part, a lot of them did not have to do so, but it's the fact that they just wait to the last minute, and that's why I do this type of stuff, and that's why I don't mind taking the flack for people saying, oh, you're calling a hurricane out 10, 12 days ahead of time. But you know what? When it comes to stuff like this, I don't mess around, and this thing has the potential to do damage to the United States, and we are going to post on it. So, with that said, you could check out here on that separate chart I was talking about. You remember the other chart said 10% chance over the next 2 days, but this thing is going to form over the next 5 days. It needs time to move its way across the warm water belt, and these are the storms that get scary, the ones that stay flat right along that range, heading right towards the Leeward Islands. Those are the ones that can reach Category 5 status even before getting to the Leeward Islands. We saw that in 2017 probably 6 or 7 times during that 10 hurricane in a row conveyor belt we dealt with at that time. So this is definitely something to look out for. Gabriel is not out of the question yet. Don't quote me on this. This thing could come down and swirl back into flow here, but chances are, because of where it's at right now and because of the different pressures keeping these two storms down, chances of Gabriel getting any bigger or stronger are pretty low. If it does, it'll be minor. If it doesn't, then we could just say goodbye to the letter G, and then we are on to Humberto, because we already went through letter E. That came and went pretty fast. So this is our main concern as of right now, unless Dorian wants to take a one of those funny left hooks we like talking about here. The old left hook. Anyway, so this is what we're looking out for right now, guys. 70% chance of cyclone formation in the next 5 days. A broad area of low pressure located just west of the Cabo Verde Islands is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. That's the key word, disorganized. That has to do with the atmosphere being a little wacky. This is when these storms begin to stick together, and once they do stick together, they start rotating, and it sucks up that warm air from the ocean, and then up through the funnel of these storms that create, and then out the sides, and then we start getting our counterclockwise spin, which would then be a tropical depression, tropical storm, and then we're on to Category 1 hurricane if that becomes the case. But I wanted to get this out there to you as soon as possible. And again, you could see just the difference between a 2-day or 48-hour forecast compared to 5-day. So this thing will not form in the next 2 days, that's for sure. But 5-day, definitely heavy, heavy potential. And these are just some of the spaghetti plots that are related to this that we could possibly be seeing. Now, one storm, these are actually 2 separate storms that are following these spaghetti plots. One has it going up right into the middle of the ocean. We hope that happens. That's what we want to see. But chances are, based on what the pressure show and the upcoming jet stream and a very, very broad Bermuda Atlantic pressure that is about to basically cover the entire Atlantic Ocean, is going to keep one or both of these storms pretty far south and hopefully not reaching super speeds that we saw Dorian hit at one point before hitting the Leeward Islands and then just totally destroying the Bahamas, which I want to do a separate video on what exactly happened there and, you know, get some more acknowledgement and eyes on what's going on about 60 miles from Florida. I mean, you got to understand, guys, we live in the U.S., but the Bahamas is literally a stone's throw away from the U.S., and it's just very hard to see those people going through what they're doing when we are so close and we can help them. And, you know, I could go on and on about that. But these are our current spaghetti plots for upcoming storms, so I want to share that with you guys, absolutely. And last but not least, we'll take one quick look at what we expect Dorian to do over the next at least 48 hours into the 7th and 8th of September here. So we could see just pulling off that part of the Outer Banks of North Carolina and that most eastern part of Virginia, kind of doing a little bit of an issue there in the Chesapeake Bay. I'm sure there's been some water flow flowing into there. Even though we have that counterclockwise spin, it should be pulling the water down. But once water gets pulled down, it tends to want to go back up. So we'll keep an eye out on those river gauges and see what's going on with that. But over the next 2 days, you can see the storm should actually follow this pattern. It may nick up parts of Massachusetts and certainly cause a very nice surfing outage, at least for those that are in Long Island at this time, unless it's going to be a little too rough for them. But hopefully we don't have to worry about this storm anymore. But the only bad part about it is that it seems to want to wrap up around the backside of Maine, which could become an issue. And then we have Nova Scotia up there. And then we have our friends in Canada, which are going to take over this storm before it's then pushed over towards the UK and Ireland. So I would like to say goodbye to Dorian, but it's just not quite time yet. And again, one more quick look at what we could be looking at in the next 10 to 12 days, possibly sooner, maybe a little longer. But a very similar trend to what we saw with Dorian and that freezing, that dead stop, and then pretty much tripling in size and then making a move. That is a very odd thing we saw with Dorian, and it's an odd thing to see right now on this chart. So, guys, thank you so much for paying attention. I want to try to get a live stream out tonight. I might not be able to get that done only because it's already 10:30. But I know those of you that are up will watch if I do so. And we will figure that out as we go. So, yes, right now we are watching the end of Dorian doing its thing on the northeast. Some of that rain just clipped us here in the northeast of Pennsylvania. It did earlier in the day, and now we're looking at western New York and Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and then, of course, like I said, this thing could potentially wrap around Maine, mixing in with this other low-pressure system, which would not be fun for Maine, at least for now. So, all right, guys, with that said, thank you so much for sticking around. I'm sorry it got so late, but we got this done. We got the video out, and we will have another one out either later on tonight as far as a live stream, or I will be live streaming tomorrow for sure. Thank you guys so much, and we will be talking very soon. Bye-bye.